So we're now ready to kind of pull up the chair, have a conversation. And this is where we can run straight into a common, dangerous stumbling block that can completely derail our best intentions. And that is the intention versus perception gap. And this gap happens when our words are perceived entirely different to the way we intended them. The truth is, none of us see reality objectively. We all see life through our own personal filters, our unique backgrounds, where we come from, our values, our past experiences, all heavily shape our communication and behavioural style and how we interpret communication, feedback. And there is a psychological trap as well to be aware of, and we tend to judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge everyone else by their actions. When you're the person doing the speaking, you know exactly what you're intending, what your intention is. But the other person only sees and hears your behaviour, and they interpret that through their own unique filter. So if we just think about how that could play out in reality, for example, you may think that you're being objective and logical, but the other person is actually perceiving you as being cold and lacking in understanding. Or you may think that you're being open-minded and flexible, but the other person perceives you as being disorganised and lacking in focus or clear direction. Or you might think that you're providing detailed instructions, and the other person might perceive you as being a bit of a micromanager. A few years ago now, in my mind, my intention was to actually just show one of my colleagues that, I cared about them because they'd come into work and they had a poorly arm. They'd hurt their arm and the wrist. And we had a big training course going on that day in the offices. And this particular colleague would always bring in large jugs of tea and coffee throughout the day, etc. And just before we were about to start, I actually went across to her and I thought I'd kind of shown some care and said, look, don't worry about bringing in the heavy jugs of tea and coffee all day. I'll get somebody else to do it. What she perceived from that, because of the way that I had come across in my kind of delivery actually of it, what she perceived was that I was annoyed with her for some reason. She didn't know why, but she thought I was annoyed and that basically I was telling her that I didn't want to see her in the room that day. And that was totally, I had no clue until my colleague came to me, another colleague came to me and said, "What on earth did you say?" And that was another great example of that intention perception kind of gap.